call them classic or vintage. It's up to you. Now it's time for the real review. Yeah.
Today we're going to take a look at these Mitchell 510 reels. They were made to fit specific rods, and I'll get into that a little later on in the video. The first thing most people notice when they're looking at a Mitchell that's based off the basic design of the 300 reels that they made is that it has a pretty complex drivetrain of gears in the reel, and the majority of them come out when you remove the side plate. There are actually a total of 5 gears in this gear train. One's on the base of the rotor. There's a pinion gear, or it's different than what you'd typically think of as a pinion gear because it's actually mounted into that side plate and not coming directly off the rotor itself. There's a main drive gear, and then there's a transfer gear that transfers power from the main drive gear down to turn the oscillation gear that works with the slider on the oscillation shaft. And on this gear train, there's actually 5 different gears that are involved in the gear train, and 3 of those gears actually have 2 sets of teeth on them. So it's almost like there's 8 different sets of gears intermeshing in this drivetrain. I haven't had this reel for a real long time, and I just recently got around to cleaning it up and putting everything back together. And I gotta say, it's like any other Mitchell in this kind of a 300 family of the Mitchell reels. It's easy to work on. The quality of the parts are good. I'm not a huge fan of the 300 family of Mitchell reels. That's my personal opinion, and I know a lot of people love them. They are well built. The parts that they use, the materials they use are all good quality materials. They're made well. I don't like the way they feel. I like worm gear driven spinning reels because they're so smooth. You can't feel the meshing of the gears, and with this many sets of gear teeth, you know you're getting a little feedback through that handle as you're cranking on it. I don't really care for that a whole lot. As far as functionality goes, they're great reels. I mean, there's a reason why some of these things are still floating around out there that were made 50 plus years ago, and they're still working. There's a reason for that. It's because they're well made. They're good reels. I just don't care for the way that they feel, and that's totally subjective. That's just my opinion on them. I'm not a huge fan of them, and I totally get it why people do like them. It makes sense. I can see a lot of things that I like about the reels. I just don't really like the way they feel, and that's just a personal preference thing. And with all that being said, these reels in particular are highly collectible, and there's not a whole lot of them around, especially with the rod. And I want to show you what's going on here with this reel foot and the rod setup. With this unique forked style leg on this spinning reel and the unique seat for the rod that the spinning reel fits into, it's really the best setup I've ever seen as far as the spinning reel goes in terms of comfort. It really doesn't matter the shape and size of your hands because the foot is totally removed from the equation. You don't have to put it between your fingers. It's totally out of the equation, and your hand goes straight on the cork grip. There's nothing else under your hand other than that cork grip, and you can slide your hand back and forth to whatever is the most comfortable position to you in order to use the reel. And that was a stroke of genius. I know they didn't catch on, and there's a reason for that, I guess, but if you think about it, how nice would it be to have your hand just on the cork grip and not have a real foot between your fingers, be able to move your hand around to reposition it and things like that. For a lot of people like me, I have large hands. Occasionally I get a little funky feeling in my hands because of the way that I'm having to hold the reel, and it's not like that with every reel. Some are better than others, but the way that this is set up, it's really easy to do things that are kind of traditional casting techniques, such as feathering your line. If you're trying to feather your line to stop your line with your finger as you're casting, there is no better setup than this, in my personal opinion. And although I don't like the 300 family of reels, Mitchell reels personally, I love the ultralight reels that they made. They made this same fork style foot in a 508 that was based off of the ultralight version of the Mitchell reels. And if I could ever get my hands on those, I'd absolutely love to have one. Unfortunately, they're very expensive, and I probably won't ever run across one out in the wild anywhere at a decent price. But the 510 is an expensive reel in its own right. The 508 usually is somewhere around triple the value in the eyes of collectors.